Hi, dancers. Welcome back. I am going to be finishing the lectures. This will be week 9. In week 9, you can see that we have Trisha Brown, Pilobolus, and Twyla Tharp as people that we're going to be focused on. We looked at Trisha Brown last week, so I'm not going to be focusing so much on her this week. But I will talk about Pilobolus and Twyla Tharp in this lecture. So without further ado, let's begin right away. We'll talk about, and this will be a shorter lecture because we're just dealing with those two individuals. So Twyla Tharp and Pilobolus. So last week, we were talking about postmodernism, and while many were involved with, the No Manifesto, if you remember that, and the beginnings of the Judson Church, while many were involved with postmodern dance, that wasn't everybody. There were others that were also creating work, and they were not afraid to be entertainers. They were not afraid to show spectacle. They were not afraid of the proscenium stage or flash and lights and characters and pop music, and bringing it all together that way, not just work that was conceptual, pedestrian, happenings, anti-establishment, mistrust of the ideologies of the authority. So some were just, these others, Twyla Tharp in particular, was interested in a lot of those things. So was interested in theatricality and spectacle and human performance and the beauty of art and dance and wanting to make things spectacular and big and fast pace and technically savvy. And so these are things that she was very interested in. This is Twyla Tharp, an early picture of her. She was born in Indiana, Twyla. Her whole family moved when she was young to California. They sold things. Her parents ran a drive-in movie theater, and she also worked at that theater. And she felt a sense of theatricality after while working there. She studied dance. She studied baton twirling. She studied many years of dance. It was just she was an active, moving child, but then she was also a bookworm. She was busy. She says basically she had no social life because she was always busy. She went to Pomona High School. She went to college and eventually transferred over to Barnard College in New York City and felt much better there, had a good kinship at Barnard College. And in 1963, she received her degree in art history. So she's a scholar. She's someone who is interested in art, has a lot to say, is very active and very opinionated, and is just a copious writer and really strong at her work. She's written books. She's made tons and tons of video of dances, and her work has been seen all over the world. She was a groundbreaking artist. She studied dance with Richard Thomas, who's part of who you know, taught the Feld, Elliott Feld, the Feld Ballet. Also trained Twyla Tharp here. She's trained very serious ballet training, but then also very serious modern training. So she trained under Martha Graham. She trained under Merce Cunningham. And in 1963, she joined that Paul Taylor Dance Company. So she was an active dancer in both ballet and in modern dance. And that would come to play out in the work that she would do as a choreographer. She was very comfortable as a modern dancer and working in the field of ballet. She looked at it all. She loved jazz. She loved tap. She loved and thought of movement itself as something that is just captivating. So she had the experience of moving on to use it all, and why not? So Tank Dive, 1965, is when she started her company. And Tank Dive was the first piece that she ever choreographed. And she went on to choreograph hundreds. And she started her company, Twyla Tharp Dance. And her company was extremely successful and ended up touring the world over. And in 1973, she was invited to choreograph for the Joffrey Ballet Company. And she created a piece called Deuce Coupe. And I know a dancer who was in that company at the time and who danced in that piece. And she tells me the story that they didn't know who this person was coming in. They didn't know who Twyla Tharp was and what did she have to do that she could come in and cross over and do this work, cross over. And she's a modern dancer. What's she doing teaching a ballet company any choreography? But she did. It was very successful. The company, that piece is still performed to this day. And it was considered really the first crossover ballet. What I mean by crossover ballet is a ballet that is choreographed by a modern dancer that incorporates non-classical technique in its choreography. So she was the first to really do this, and she made a killing at it, did great with this, continued to do it, and worked with lots of ballet companies all over the world, all over Europe, all over and all over the United States. So she ended up doing a lot of this. Perhaps the best example of a crossover ballet is one that she choreographed in 1976, featuring Mikhail Baryshnikov. Misha, he was just an amazing dancer, and push comes to shove, it's so fun to watch. And I believe I put a copy of that in the and for you to watch. So it's such a fun piece that he does. And so so she's working with like the premier ballet dancers of her time, and having them do jazzy, fun, quirky, modern work. Just so it's expanding. So remember, modern dance started as a rebellion against ballet. And now, almost 100 years later, we come to the point where modern dance is welcoming and working together with ballet. And we have people that are dancing together in this. So it's really interesting to see modern dancers becoming ballet dancers and ballet dancers becoming modern dancers. And it's becoming, the training is looked at as equally important. And so dancers start doing that. So, and it skyrockets the technique levels of modern dancers, and some of the work just is, it's phenomenal. So, crossover, and that's something you should really get to know about and think about when you're talking about Twyla Tharp, that she was a crossover choreographer from modern dance to ballet. And she choreographed on like the Paris Opera Ballet, the Lyon Ballet, the Seattle's Pacific Northwest Ballet. She choreographed, and she eventually became the choreographer for the resident choreographer. Like her company, Twyla Tharp Dance, kind of dissolved into what is the American Ballet Theater. So she became the resident choreographer of the American Ballet Theater for a time. Here are some images. This is Deuce Coupe. This is her first, this is that piece. So these are American ABT dancers dancing Deuce Coupe. So look, she's got already here a mix of like social dance going on. These could be like club dancers, and you've got a ballerina there in the background as well. And are they wearing character shoes? These are who are these guys? They're doing, it's kind of jazzy, it's kind of funky and fun, and then you've got a ballet dancer on point. Wow, amazing blend of work. This is Push Comes to Shove, and this is Mikhail Baryshnikov, and just this is just a signature work. He does a lot with a hat, and it's relaxed, it's loose, it's cool, and it's so technically savvy. And this is a newer work of hers so she's still doing that. You can see, look, are they wearing pajamas? What are they wearing here? And the point, you can tell they're still on point shoes. So she has this amazing knack for blending classical choreography and classical movements with relaxed pedestrian, jazz, social dance, modern dance. She blends it all. It's a fun, funky work. And so, like I said, her style blends several genres: ballet, modern, jazz, tap, baton twirling, social dancing, tango dancing. She's done it all. It's amazing. Very technically difficult work, but looks so easy and relaxed. The work she choreographed for Broadway musicals, she choreographed on Broadway. Moving Out. I went to see this piece. It was done to music by Billy Joel, all Billy Joel songs, and it was there was a live band, and there was so much happening on the stage, and she linked up these songs by Billy Joel that kind of formed a story and a narrative. So she's using characters and she's using story, and she's bringing them to life with movement. It's just great. She also choreographed for film and television, and one of my favorite pieces of hers is White Nights. Gregory Hines and Baryshnikov, and she made work but she made several other pieces that were film and television. White Nights just stands out to me as one of my favorites. Print work. She's created 3 or 4 books now. The Creative Habit is one that we use a lot. The Creative Habit, when you get into composition, or if you've taken the composition classes, the composition sequence, we use that book in our the Creative Habit. We use it in the composition classes, the exercises in there, and the way she talks about creativity is just brilliant. She is wonderful, and so that's a great book, and you will use it if you haven't already. So this is from Moving Out. It's just an image of that. You can see the band playing up here in the background. Burgers, and it's just like this whole series. And you've got these Jersey Boys, and I don't know, these like the Fonz. Like he's got these people. So it's relaxed. But you also have this strong, classical, brilliant, amazing technique that happens as well, right alongside relaxed, fun, social. So this is flashy. There are characters, there are caricatures, there are people watching each other. There are real people here as well as characters. It's just so much fun. And this is an image from White Nights, and you have Gregory Hines, and you have Baryshnikov dancing here, and they're both doing this big turning leap. And if you haven't seen the film White Nights, it's about defection from Russia. It's an amazing film. It's well worth seeing. So, highly recommend that. So, that's Twyla Tharp. It's just a quick, brief rundown of her, and then I also want to talk briefly about Pilobolus. Pilobolus is an amazing group of people. They started out as college dancers like yourselves. They were dancing, but they were at Dartmouth College up in New Hampshire. And in 1971, they were taking this dance composition class by Alison Becker Chase. And the in the class was these three dancers, these three men, Moses Pendleton, Jonathan Wolkin, and Steve Johnson. These three also became sort of the founders of what would become Pilobolus. And I remember reading that they challenged the notions of dance. They wanted to know more. They were just hooked. Alison Chase was a great teacher and just encouraged their creativity and encouraged them to make work. Moses Pendleton, he was into English Lit, and he was a cross-country skier. He was a wisecracker. He was a great, he was a smart guy. Jonathan Wolkin, philosophy science major. He did fencing. They were into their philosophy. They were into their Lit. Steve Johnson is a pre-med student, a pole vaulter. These were smart guys. And they were interested in just the physicality and the expression of what could come out of movement and imagery. And the connection of people choreographing, like the images that would come out of movement. They also didn't take themselves too seriously, even though they were at Dartmouth. They weren't taking themselves too seriously. And so those three guys, and also there were other members of the company that also joined with them. So, but those three guys made the sort of the beginnings. And so they were having fun, and they were learning, and they were working with each other, and they were choreographing on each other. This is Moses Pendleton, Jonathan Wolkin. Yeah, and they just continued to work. Here we are. More about Pilobolus. So what is a Pilobolus? Pilobolus crystallinus. So this is a phototropic light-living fungus. That's what a Pilobolus is, commonly known as hat thrower. Its spores accelerate to 45 miles an hour in the first millimeter of their flight. And they're sticky, and they adhere to whatever they land on. It's a way of them spreading their message, I guess, or growing their ideas. And so the people liked this notion. Father of Jonathan Wolkin was studying Pilobolus in his biology lab when the first group formed. And so they were like, hey, I kind of like this idea. And so this is sort of what the fungus does. It grows, it creates this bulbous thing that pops and shoots out and adheres to whatever's near it. Here's an image of what they actually look like. And they get swollen like a balloon, and they pop and they explode, and they shoot out. The hat throwers just spread and grow in a new place. So, pretty cool. This image, I think, is kind of apt. It looks similar to one of those little hat throwers. If you look at it as a whole, I don't know. But this is characteristic of what a Pilobolus work is. It's dancers close together. Their choreography is such that it's about human groupings, physicality of like they hold on to each other, they connect, they form one mass of humanity by glomming on to one another. And this is very characteristic of that kind of choreography where they're just tightly bound together, arms and limbs. And like you have no idea whose arm is this one and whose foot is, how does a foot end up there? You just don't necessarily know whose is whose when you get into the mix of it. And it's great. So is this, how, sometimes you just have to think, how, where is he, so you don't know how did they get into this position, and how did it start, and how did it begin? So, and they evolve in and out of this kind of work, and it spreads the love of movement and the love of dance, and it's they're an amazing group of dancers. And if you want to know more about Pilobolus, you know, you should ask Daryl Thomas. He danced with them. So it's a great thing to know. So Pilobolus has performed on Broadway. They've performed at the Oscars and the Olympics. You'll find them everywhere. Advertising products. They do work for schools. They would do work for businesses. They do work for television and movie. They find work everywhere. Like they're interested in entertainment. They're interested in showcasing how dance can sell things. They're interested in how dance can spread love and commonality and interest and tell stories. And they do it with shadows. They do it with lights. They do it, in non-conventional spaces. They've made over 120 works. They've performed in over 65 countries. Since 1971, they've tested the limits of human physicality to explore the beauty and power of connected bodies. They're really known for their partnering skills. And the company continues to explore and make new work. And I just wanted to leave you with some imagery. Some very symmetrical work. And like, where do you go from here? This is a piece that I danced in, I believe, called Bonsai, and it was a work that, but from just one still image like this, like it looks very symmetrical. And how and where do you go from here? I danced. I never danced in the Pilobolus company, but I danced some of their repertory. So this is wonderful. Wow! And look at this. Like, how do we even get into this position? So I get amazed by what I see sometimes about just like, oh, how in the world did you do that? You know what I mean? Just to capture an image that's just incredible. They're pushing boundaries and going for it. Just amazing work. Again, images that are just vulnerable, like very scantily clad often. Their dancers are, just like bare-chested or very wearing very little clothing, but just to see the line and the shape and the form of the human body. And yet this is still an interesting look at the angles, and the faces are covered, but it's almost like an insect here, but there's also like friendship here. What is going on? It makes you wonder. They're captivating images. Beautiful symmetricality, line, shape, form. This is what Pilobolus is known for. It's their shapes, their shaping work. It's just great. So that's what I wanted to leave you with today. I know, and I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Next week, you will be finishing up your papers. If you haven't started them already, this will be a good time. We won't have a lecture at all next week, but next week is week 10, and you can follow the directions on writing the paper, which is here. Here, you choose any two of the following choreographers: Pina Bausch, Anna Teresa de Kersemacher, Lar Lubavitch, Doug Verone, Mark Morris, Bill T. Jones, Jawale Willow Jozaler, Aiko Nkoma, Steve Paxton, Elizabeth Streb, or Lloyd Nilsson. So you can choose any two of those and write a 5 to 8 page paper that that compares and contrasts their choreography, their philosophy, their teaching style, their message, or their creative output. Something about them, about what they're doing and what they're making. So you don't have to give me a whole history lesson about who they are and where they came from. I mean, I think some context would be important and would be good, especially if the paper talks about, if you're bringing up something, some aspect of their, their creative output and the work that they do and the style in which they do it. If there's two really contrasting choreographers here that you feel like, wow, I'd like to learn more about them or talk more about them, you can do that. I definitely would like you to cite your sources. It would be great to have at least two, possibly 3 or 4 sources would be great. Times New Roman, 12-point font, black ink, MLA, formatting is great. And so that's it. And I really am looking forward to reading these papers. Compare and contrast the choreographers, pick 2, and it's going to be great. You'll learn a lot about them, and I can't wait to read what you put together. And I'm looking forward to that. So I hope you've enjoyed these lectures. I hope you've enjoyed it and learned a lot about modern dance through these, and the history of modern dance through these lectures that I've been giving. Next week will be the paper, and then you can also start reviewing for the final exam. And I will put together the final exam next week. All right. I hope you are well. Take care, and I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving.